Council on December 15th, 2020 to order. Could you please stand for a moment of silence? Thank you very much. So before I begin my mayor's address, I just wanted to pass on some good news that we were given at our county council meeting today. Our Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture, the Honorable Lisa MacLeod, announced that the 2022 Ontario Winter Games are going to be held at Calabogie. And the province is going to be putting in $1 million to help put on those games. So it should be a big tourism and economic boost for Renfrew County. So that was the big news today at county. That's great. Moving on to my mayor's address, I'd like to wish all of staff, council, and our residents a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It has been a year unlike any other with the challenges COVID-19 has presented. In spite of those challenges, our staff have persevered, achieving successful changes in how we deliver our services. I feel it is important to recognize those achievements as another year draws to a close. During this past year, we've continued to evolve as an effective council to move our municipality forward by implementing the following. We had an early adoption of our 2020 budget. We amended our procedural bylaw to accommodate virtual meetings and are continually working to improve the quality of those meetings. We've implemented Township office procedures to service the public during the COVID-19 restrictions. We've completed office and council chamber upgrades for the protection of council and staff through COVID-19 restrictions. We've maintained and operated our waste transfer sites without interruption through COVID-19 restrictions. Recognizing resident and volunteer Dale Benwell with the successful nomination of the Warden's Community Service Award in the establishment of the Golden Lake Food Bank. Purchase of new computers and server and redevelopment of our municipal website. Installation of 2 new electronic signs, one at Golden Lake Fire Hall and one at our municipal office. Acquiring and adopting our new electronic meeting management software to plan, organize, record, and document our meeting agenda and minutes. Adopting newly developed strategic plan and progressing with the initiatives that were identified. Progressing with our asset management policy development and review of electronic software to manage the data. Adopting a bylaw to address unreasonable behavior. Progressing on economic development opportunities and initiatives through collaboration with our neighboring municipalities. Appointing a new fire chief and renovating the Golden Lake Fire Hall to address health and safety requirements. Acquisition of fire pumper truck and extrication equipment for our fire department. Completing $1 million in rehabilitation of our road infrastructure. Reorganization and development of our staff with the hiring of new clerk treasurer and an administrative assistant. Organizing a successful virtual Canada Day celebration and 2 Christmas concerts. Hiring and training new bylaw enforcement officers and developing enforcement bylaws. Reviewing our chief building official shared service agreement with Boncher Valley and exploring new options. Collaboration with the Boncher River Watershed Committee to amend the Boncher River drawdown limits to mitigate flooding. Partnering with our neighboring municipalities in development of our community safety and well-being plan. Completed upgrades to the Melissa Bishop Park Cottage, established an ad hoc committee for the Wilkins Trail, and utilized donated material from the Mennonite community for preliminary work on staging area. Exploring a partnership with a local college campus for environmental assessment service and providing college program utilization. These are some of the highlights for 2020. I want to thank council and staff for all of these accomplishments. It is indeed a pleasure working with all of you, and I look forward to 2021 with optimism as we continue to grow our community. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So I have a resolution that council accept the December 15th, 2020 mayor's address as presented, moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Burke. Councillor Burks?
Yes.
Councillor Buchwald?
Yes.
Councillor Robinson?
Yes.
Councillor Reicher-Schoenfeld?
Yes.
And a yes, that's carried. Thank you. We have are there any declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will move on to the adoption of the minutes. I have a resolution that council accepts the December 1st, 2020 minutes as presented. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Buchwald, seconded by Councillor Robinson. Are there any additions, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Councillor Burns?
Yes.
Councillor Buchwald?
Yes.
Councillor Robinson?
Yes.
Councillor Reicher-Schoenfeld?
Yes.
And a yes, that's carried. Thank you. We have no delegations tonight, so we move on to reports. Our first one being the unopened road allowance. I have a resolution that council accepts the report on unopened road allowances and further directs staff to proceed with the drafting of a bylaw to be attached to the policy on unopened road allowances. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Buchwald, seconded by Councillor Robinson. Comments or questions? Councillor Buchwald.
Just two comments. In one of the provisions it talks about, we may consider if the distance being traveled along the road allowance is short. Short's in the eye of the beholder. I was wondering if maybe we should put something in there a little more descriptive.
So we, with permission of the mayor, we could put that distance less than 40 meters would be considered short, and we can add that to the policy. The policy will come back to the bylaw, so we can add that.
The second one I have, it does talk about a lot of livestock on the property, but it also talks about not being able to put gates or fencing on the unopened road allowance. And there's potentially a conflict there.
The issue with gates or fencing is the road allowances are basically open to everyone. And we would expect that the gates and fencing would be on the property, keeping it, you know, for the road allowance would be more used for moving livestock as opposed to storing livestock. Because the argument would be that, well, why can't I, have that as part of my yard? Is that because the person put a cow on that part, why can't I have that for my dog and play it, make an area for my dog to play?
Yeah, it's just a concern because again, with the road allowances, as they go through like farm properties and other properties where the owner may not even know exactly where it is. There may be existing fencing there across the road along the cattle fencing. I just don't want to see that become an issue down the road.
And I think it becomes an issue when it comes up as an issue, and perhaps we could address some of those. We have in the past been able to maneuver through some of those things, but the intent is not to block the road allowance from others to do.
Councillor Reicher-Schoenfeld.
The part where it talks about, I think it's near the end, and I can't remember. There was a $5,000 amount fee. Like, so what I was thinking is that fee should be higher, because remember, like, it's kind of like a fee, like if everything goes well, then they get that money's back. To me, like $5,000 really isn't a lot of money if they really wrap the road up. they might say, yeah, keep my fee, it would have cost me $10,000 to bring that road, you know, to where it was. And remember, it's a fee, we're not keeping the $5,000, we're just holding it. So I'm just thinking that should be higher.
So if I may, count the fee that we're talking about, or this deposit, is for traversing the unopened road allowance, which is typically something that isn't developed. If council would like a further report for logging permits to be, you know, to transport logs along our roads, that would be a bigger one. Yes, there may be a higher deposit.
Okay, so I guess I was a little confused in that, because I thought it was only $5,000 to me, then it's like, you know, I'll do whatever, and like $5,000 is nothing, like $5,000 that would be eaten up really quickly when you're using that equipment to fix something. That was
And
my
council may wish that we bring forward a logging deposit for regular road. This is just for the road allowance. Other municipalities do that because logging trucks, as you know, can really ruin a road.
That's right, like it could ruin the unopened road and the road that you're accessing from the unopened road.
So, but this bylaw is specific, or policy is specific to the unopened road.
Right, and I still think that personally, I still think that could be higher. And the other thing too is it really important, so if they take an unopened road allowance and they cut trees that were on the road allowance or on the road itself to make it easier to pass the truck, do we really think it's important for them to reforest that? Because maybe 3 years later, they're gonna be logging there again.
What this does, it gives us the ability to control it. And we may have that reforest or we may not. But if you don't have it in there, you have no options.
I'm just saying, is it an option that we really think is important to do? Like, if we have it there in our rules, then to me, then that's a rule that they have to,
We
trees.
can put it at the discretion of the municipality.
something like that would make it feel maybe slightly.
So,
No, those were just my 2 comments. I thought that 5,000 should be higher, and then I thought,
the council like us to come back at 10,000.
well, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, you know, like I'm just giving university students at a dorm, if you say the caution fee or the fee is $50, they'll be like, sure, I'll put holes in the wall and we can keep my $50, right? But if it's a little more money, then I'm gonna think twice about doing stuff I shouldn't do. And like I said, they're still gonna get the money back, not keeping it.
I like the idea of raising the fee. I also like the idea of adding something for trucking, especially those very log trucks. Because they tend to sometimes even ignore the half load recommendations on our roads. And I think sometimes they also are a little bit, I don't want to say careless, but they don't exercise the same caution on every one of our roads, especially if they're logging in an area.
So just for council, I think you have 2 different bylaws you're talking about. One
Right.
for regular road. When we're on an unopened road allowance, it's not a road. And we have things that we can do because it's our property.
Mhm.
When you're on the road itself, we cannot pull a vehicle over. So it's not like we can enforce things the same way we can enforce on private property. That said, other municipalities that have been involved in municipalities, and usually good logging companies will pay the price. But it's harder to get the money out of someone who doesn't want to pay because they don't have the ability to stop.
Right.
The concern, which I think was alluded to, is that sometimes you will see the trucks, especially in the springtime, and they're heavy.
Yeah.
And they just wreak havoc to any portion that they're traversing through, whether it's the road, which we're not talking about, but they're on the road.
And unfortunately, that's what they do. So we'll do the 10,000 on this one, and staff, with council's direction, will come back with something for regular roads that can at least address the problem.
Any other comments?
Just go down the list again, or up the list. Okay. 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 Okay, I think that was okay. The other ones I finished, the other ones, I was okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'll call the vote. Councilor Burns? Yes. Councilor Buckles?
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
Councilor Reckless-Jonson?
Yes,
I'm a yes, that's carried. Thank you. Next item is 7.2, which is the food bank donation. I have a resolution that the township donates $290 to the Sharing Place Food Bank in Golden Lake to be used for their Christmas food drive. Before I call for a mover and a seconder, I would suggest we make it 300. It's easier if you want to split it up into gift cards. It's a nice round number and it's easier to manage. So that would be my suggestion to council.
I was gonna ask why 2
that was the card.
That was that.
Remember when we did the Cheeto thing?
I would do that.
And I was seconded.
Moved by Councilor Bucklow, second by Councilor Robinson. Any other comments? Seeing none, Councilor Burns? Yes. Councilor Bucklow?
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
Councilor Reckless-Jonson?
Yes,
Oh, yes, that's carried. Thank you. Item 7.3 is the doctor recruitment report. We have a resolution that council accepts the report as presented and further that North Algona Wilberforce Township will withdraw from the joint municipal physician recruitment and retention committee at the end of 2021. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Burns, seconded by Councilor Reckless-Jonson. Comments or questions? The only question I had, so for 2021, are we donating a portion of the money or it's just for basically?
2020, yeah. So I think we will still have meetings and stuff like that, and some of it has to do with the disbursements of the monies, or if
Okay.
something goes wrong with the doctors, we have talking about that. And then I guess MD, because they're in charge of the monies, just so they can talk to us about it so that it's passed, and it's not like MD say they're gonna do all this stuff.
So it's still a functioning committee, but not
That's right, there'll be no.
no requirement for funds. Okay. Councilor Robinson?
So does that mean that it'll be totally wrapped up, the committee at the end of 2020?
And they're hoping to have it wrapped up simply because the next year is no election year, right? And so they didn't want to be like a lame duck committee, so that's why they intended up getting everything completed by then. It doesn't mean that all the monies might be used up because there's certain payments coming out at certain times, but in theory, everything should be wrapped.
Thank you for the clarification. I'll call the vote. Councilor Burns? Yes. Councilor Bucklow?
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
Councilor Reckless-Jonson?
Yes,
And a yes, carried. Item 7.4 is the official plan. So I have a resolution that all of council review the official plan amendment document and submit any comments to the clerk treasurer by December 30th, 2020. And further, that staff bring forward a report that includes council's comments to the January 5th, 2021 meeting of council. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Robinson, seconded by Councilor Burke. Questions or comments? Council
Where
Byrne.
did I send you the last? Shouldn't be part of it.
Pardon me?
You have the maps and that something, is it the maps again?
I believe so, yes, yeah. So I'll call the vote. Council Burns,
Yes.
Council Buckwald,
Yes.
Council Robinson,
Yes.
Council Riker Schoenfeld,
Yes,
and a yes, that's carried. Thank you. Item 7.5 is the Light Up the Night contest winners. I have a resolution that council agrees to present all 3 registered residents for the contest with a prize, and thank Councillor Byrne for representing the township as the Santa judge. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Reggie Schoenfeld, seconded by Councillor Buckle. And do we know who the winners were? Are they indicated there?
Jeff Wilcox, Melissa, David Sandoval, and Arlen McMillan. We took a good drive around on Sunday night over the lights. There's a lot of people have a lot of nice lights up. It's too bad that they weren't on it.
Yeah.
I know there's a neighbor just down the road from me that's got a lovely light
Well,
display.
I keep on the way here tonight, even in Tony's summer subdivision, I think there's a lot of nice ones in there. And like, I never went in there, like, I'm gonna go in there sometime.
so like I find sometimes, you know, when things are first starting out, it takes a while to get momentum. So
Yeah.
maybe just if we could remember, if we did it again, which I think is good.
I think
Has
it's
lots
fun.
of spirit, right? Maybe we could put that in our fall tax bill. You know, just a little memo saying, hey, don't forget, and then check out our website for you, or something like that. So because not everybody checks the website out or looks in the paper or reads the minutes, but everybody opens up the tax bill.
We hope.
Yeah, and you know, even if you put like a little like logo or like, you know, Santa Claus or something, sometimes that'll draw your attention to, like, you know, rather than
You're right.
dump hours or something. Anyway, this is.
Even country style there, maybe the house beside them, which is, wow. They're
Pretty
really
extravagant.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not in our town.
No, I know.
But
They put a lot of work into it.
I know, oh, well, no, there's that whole street that has,
Oh, yeah.
right, Michelle? Like, it's awesome.
in Wilno,
And then there's that place outside of, on Greenwood Road, right?
Oh,
Where they have
yeah.
the flashing lights and everything, that's great.
They, I changed the music.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So my only question is then, will Councilor Bird be dressing up as Santa to deliver the prizes?
We should get him a big light. We should get you a big light or something.
Yes, so that he glows.
A big light bulb.
No, I just got feedback that more people than many, because there's a lot of people doing a lot of work.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
But I
no.
mean, maybe
But I don't know how you get it out there.
they can catch on. It has to go on a
I think it will catch on. It's the first year.
Yeah.
And we did it a little late.
Yeah.
So I think we'll definitely keep doing it. We'll light up. No.
That's right.
There's a lot of best places.
So I'll call the vote. Councilor Bird?
No, just wait.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was actually thinking that from the areas that we have in parks and creating a lighting tunnel or something like that.
Lighting.
Would be kind of fun too for the kids. To go
It would
walk.
certainly work once we're through COVID.
Well, exactly. Well, we're not going to do it now, but you could still do it.
COVID.
It's going to be new nasty words to use. Anyway, sorry.
So I call the vote. Councilor Burns?
Yes.
Councilor Buckwald?
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
Councilor Riker Schoenfeld?
Yes.
And a yes. Carried. Thank you. Item 7.6 is the public skating sponsorship. I have a resolution that the township sponsors 2 public skating events in January, February, or during the March school break at the Edenville Arena. And I got a mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Buckwald, seconded by Councillor Robinson. Comments, questions? Councillor Robinson.
So are we're just doing two, and we're going to choose the dates, or just
We've always done two, and I think in most years, we've always had them during the March break.
just March break?
I think so, yeah.
Yes. And then they just choose them for us.
Yeah,
Whichever dates.
yes, Laura.
Kevin McGrath called me yesterday and they have all of January and February open if you want to choose dates in those months.
I imagine December's already booked.
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's right, yeah.
I think it's gonna be 260 for 2 hours, 3 minutes.
It's 260 each
No, for the two.
for the 2 hour, 1 hour.
Oh, we could do January, February. Maybe,
We'll go back to
Family day.
family day, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And Family day is open, I think would be a good one.
Yeah.
And then March break.
one of the March break.
If they're available.
If they're available.
Rather, it's on.
Yes, nothing's been doing the rounds.
Okay, I'll call the vote. Council Burns,
Yes.
Council Buckwald,
Yes.
Council Robinson,
Yes.
Council Reggie.
Yes,
And yes, that's carried. Thank you. Item 7.7 is the shore road allowance closures. I have a resolution that council enact the following shore closing and restrictive covenant bylaws. 2020-75 close and convey shore road allowance Terry Lynn Martin. 2020-76 restricted covenant Terry Lynn Martin. 2020-77 close and convey shore road allowance Kim Renee Martin. And 2020-78 restricted covenant Kim Renee Martin. And I got a mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Buckwald, seconded by Councillor Reggie. Comments or questions? Seeing none, Councillor Burke,
Yes.
Councillor Buckwald,
Yes.
Councillor Robinson,
Yes.
Councillor Reggie Schoenfeld,
yes,
and a yes, it's carried. Thank you. Item 7.8 is our tangible assets policy report. I have a resolution that council accepts the report and adopts the policy in Schedule A as presented, and that staff bring forward Schedule B at the January 5th, 2021 council meeting. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Buckwald, seconded by Councillor Robinson. Maybe I'll just ask staff if they can give us a little more detail and background on this one.
So the tangible asset policy is the most important component of your asset management policy. Basically, your tangible assets are all the things you own, all the material things you own, trucks, roads, buildings, fire equipment. So why it's so important to have that policy is basically the tangible asset policy gives a value and a lifespan to each thing that we own and a replacement cost, which generates a reserve contribution. So when you do your full asset management plan, all this information is fed into it, and it becomes your guiding policy as to what is put into reserves every year, what is purchased. And it's basically the machine that makes your asset management policy work. So when all of this information on your assets are inputted, then it generates your reserve contributions. And council, once they approve that, looks more at new things, for example, new roads or a new arena, things like that. And the policy just generates the figure that's going to go into your budget. Now, the province has demanded that all municipalities will have this in place, a evidence-based asset management plan by July 1st, 2021. So this means it has to be approved by 2021. So this is the first component that allows us to go into the actual planning. There's a Schedule 1 or Schedule A and Schedule B. Schedule A is all the assets and the lifespan and basically costing. Schedule B will be special considerations. And it takes a lot more detail. That Schedule B will spell out that, for example, that cemetery. I think there's a lifespan of 30 years on that road. So when we do that cemetery, to get it to go to 30 years, at 3 years, you have to do crack seal. At 7 years, you have to start doing patches. At another 3 years, you're doing crack sealing, another 20, you're doing a mist on the top. And then at the end of the lifespan of 30 years, you have to reinvest into the road. And that is basically another lift and some repairs, basically half the cost of the asset to do that. That's how these things work. And in, for example, the fire truck, when you get to the end of the lifespan, you have to put the money out, but the fire trucks just don't survive on nothing. You have to do inspections, you have to do oil changes, and all those things. So those are all put into your plan because the government is saying that we have to be able to have a plan that provides the lifespan of the asset and the replacement of the asset. So scary, and then when you look at Schedule A, it looks like a 50% tax increase. So what we did is we took reasonable lifespans of buildings, equipment, and maintenance that's required to keep them functioning. Council has to decide, is this what you want to use? And it doesn't make a lot of difference if you take the lifespan of a road and make it 30 years or 25 years. The number is going to be very high, and you're not the only municipality that is in this deficit situation. So what we've done in Schedule A is put out all your assets into a 25-year cycle. So if all assets were in good condition, you go through that 25-year cycle. Unfortunately, if you start the cycle with a motor grader that's 13 years old and you have a schedule to replace at 10, you're in deficit situation when you start the schedule. So even with the reserve contributions, you're still a little bit behind. You have to start somewhere. So this will be a tool that you'll be using for your budget capital this year, and then in future years it will just generate that number every year. So it's up to council to decide what you want to make for Schedule A. You could say, okay, we're going to make a grader last 30 years, and the contribution is going to be X amount. But the problem is we look at that and say, no, graders don't last 30 years. They last 6 years. And you may say, well, I can't afford to do it for 6 years, I can afford to do 10. Well, 10 more means well 30. But we've got to present something to the province that is reasonable. In the numbers, when I looked at things, I thought we'd be around 60%. And we're around 51%. The fire department, when they made the presentation to council, they were very concerned about council's ability to pay. So I think the fire's around 119. I think that's a little low, pretty reasonable. When you take a fire truck and sit for 30 years, There's hoses that are going to rot out in that 30 years. It's not, and all kinds of ECU and things like that are going to last that time. It's a starting point, and it's something for council to strive for. It's something you're required to do. Is staff recommending that council will increase your budget by 30% or 60% this year? I don't think that's reasonable. I don't think you're going to be able to do that. But it's something to start striving to and show a plan to get there. This is the first component of your plan. So there is a policy attached to this. And again, a policy has to have some backing to it. So the draft policy, which I tried to make very simple, is basically it defines what your tangible asset is. And we looked at things, you know, as everything a tangible asset, as a potential tangible asset. What we did is group things together. So we took a value of $2,000 to be the minimum asset value. But some things by their grouping may be an individual asset, even if they're less than $2,000. For example, if you have a vote for the registration on it, it's an asset itself. But we group things together. For example, all the SCBAs from the fire department group as an asset. So real estate is asset. We have asset values in the real estate. And our scope is the whole municipality. So the methodology, we listed things individually or in groups of life units with replacement, lifespan, present value, annual reserve contributions. And that is Schedule A. Schedule B, which will be expanded and coming to council, will take all of the things that make up the life of Schedule A. For example, we have a bulldozer. It's a 450 John Deere. It paid $25,000 when you purchase it. To replace that machine is like $350,000. You're never going to do that. So in our plan, Schedule B will be that asset gets $1,000 a year in the reserve contribution. That will be for repairs that are maintenance that normally happens. If it comes to the point where that asset needs a $100,000 repair or needs to be replaced, you would just drop that asset and just rent those when you need it. You have the asset now. In Schedule B buildings, we don't have a schedule replacement, for example, of this building. We have a perpetual maintenance of this building. You do the shingles in 20 years, you do the furnace in 20 years, you do things like that. So some things are treated differently. In all our roads, we grouped our roads into, I believe it's 6 categories, Perry. We did 3 categories of gravel, so 3 different classes of gravel roads that we made up. And then we did the tar and chip, cold road, and asphalt roads. We took the values of the roads to be Macintosh Perry. Because you're never actually replacing the road, we're just going with the maintenance values and we did a cost per kilometer of roads. For example, if you do a full replacement of a asphalt road down to $1 million a kilometer. So we took those values and put them into the policy, and that will be part of Schedule B. For example, the gravel roads that are just 4 inches of gravel, we're not putting we're not putting $100,000 in that. But the tar and chip road, there's a schedule of how often you do the tar and chip, and eventually you get to a point where the tar and chip, because it doesn't have structural value, will have to be completely pulverized and start over again. What's the year on the tar and chip, Eric, on the lifespan?
That was 20 years.
Yeah, so at 20 years, you've actually got to do the whole thing again. But there's only so much tar and chip you can put on top of each other because of the structural integrity is gone. So we've taken all those things into consideration, and there's going to be Schedule B is going to be a really expanded field for what you have now to explain how we got to those numbers. So Schedule B will be something that's a living document that staff will continuously update. And when we get our software, it'll also, so for example, we have a truck that is scheduled to be replaced next year, and the engine blows, and we have to replace the engine. then we would be able to put in Schedule B that because of that special consideration, lifespan of the truck is now increased. Or if you have a catastrophic failure, then you go the other way. But Schedule B is where we're allowed to put the maintenance in, or for example, we get a grant for disaster financial relief. That would, increase the value or the life of the road. So those things are sort of a fluid thing. So Schedule A, we would be doing a formal update every 2 years. And as we do things, you're going to see the contributions possibly go down in some areas and maybe go up in other areas. And because you're going to take all those things that you put in Schedule B and now put them in Schedule A. So staff are going to continuously be doing Schedule B, and council will be looking at Schedule A every 2 years officially.
So is everything in Schedule A like totally complete? There's like, it's all complete, everything, all our tangible assets are listed in all these pages?
So what we did put in, because we were trying to be somewhat efficient and that we didn't see there's a cost. For example, we own a 4-acre lot in the Golden Lake. It's an asset that increases in value that we don't have to put any money into it. So for the purpose of this, we didn't put those assets in. So real estate that we own that has no maintenance costs or lifespan costs, we didn't put into the program.
And so any surplus equipment we had, that's not obviously included.
The surplus equipment will just be sold to clients.
So basically, anything $2,000 and up that is deemed a tangible asset is included in all these pages.
Correct. And some things are group. For example, the furniture in this office, it's not one individual table, it's everything in the whole office. And the same with the shop and then the fire department on their shelves and everything, it's all group. But things that have their own life, such as the SCBA, would be one thing.
Thank you for the background, Andrew. I think this is, well, it is. It's really important that we have this. Unfortunately, we're a number of years behind a lot of other municipalities that have had this in place for some 10, 15 years. And we're just starting. So once again, it's a little bit shocking to see some of the reserve contributions that are required, knowing that our taxpayers certainly can bear those costs, but we've got to start somewhere. Councilor Robinson.
Did you say that Schedule B, like in some of these cases where you said specifically the building would be repairs? How do we know it's going to be repairs versus replacement?
So in the Schedule B, which we're calling special considerations, for example, this building, Jerry may have that in front of him, in 20 years, or if he gets new shingles. Also in that 20 years, it's getting new furnace. And then there's other work, it just so perpetually this building will continue on. Whereas your truck, and whatever, pick a truck that's, it's got a life of 12 years or 10 years, it's going to be replaced if the maintenance is done. Whereas the building is just perpetually going to be cared for in the plan. Whereas those special considerations also change. For example, the building we had a tornado and all the shingles were taken off and the insurance paid for it. Well, that would be put in special considerations. So when council reviews it the second year, then the lifespan goes out. So now we're not doing shingles so that price could go down as far as reserve contribution.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Yes, Councilor Bird.
Just had a question for Andrew. I was just looking at the roads, and it says Royal Pines Road was 877,000. And then the second column is 732. Is that what we have to spend to clean all the roads?
I just have to balance that. So in the so Royal Pines, that what the present value is is that 877. Over the course of the 20 years, we're going to contribute the 480, which is 24,000 a year.
That's Crooked Rapids 480.
Or sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, we're just one line off here, 36. The idea is that at the end of the 20 years, you've got to replace that asset. So basically, you're building the asset to replace it. And you've got surface treatment, as I said, you can't keep putting surface treatment on top of surface treatment. Eventually, you've got to redo the road. And the other thing that can come into this too is we can do assessments of our roads. Once we get this in place, we can take a road and reevaluate the road. Because part of the values that we put in here were from McIntosh Perry, and we may be able to reduce some things. I think for me, the scary part of what we have here is if we're 50% wrong, that's still a very high number. I don't think we're 50% wrong. I think we're going to change a few things with the McIntosh Perry stuff. I think that the township assets, the other township assets, the buildings, trucks, and fire department are pretty close.
That was going to be my question from the original McIntosh and Perry report. Can we then build, because this is step one, and then the next one is building in the years when the asset has to be replaced or work has to be done.
So what happened with the asset management software that we're looking at, and we're still trying to get a firm price on the city board. This is the tool that you throw in, and you throw that tool in, it will take everything and start putting them in years and time frames. And it will also, providing you get the right tool, it will also look at the ability to, for example, don't do 5 trucks in 1 year. It'll look at that staging of things. So your reserve contribution, and would say our reserve contribution is 500,000 this year. It may say that next year it's going to be 600, but the year after 400. It's going to put all those things in place. But you have to have the information to put into it so it can start generating those numbers.
I was just looking under roads and complex, which have some of the older roads, I think. But they're all showing there's a 30-year lifespan on them. So, but some of the roads I'm looking at, and it's already old.
Okay, so what we're starting with, and like the truck, we're starting with that. So unfortunately, this is how it works. This may not be what we have. So yes, we're going to start with a deficit, and we're going to give you those numbers, but you have to start with something. You have to have that plan. So you've got the 30-year plan, but we are going to come to you and say, well, you know, this road is beyond repair. And yes, over 30 years, if you put that money into the work, you're not going to get it for 30 years. You're going to have to do something now. So those things, that's a separate part. This is taking, this is under ideal conditions. This will make everything you own replaced in the 25-year cycle, basically a care forever. But not all of what you own is in perfect condition. And so this is the base for everything you own. And this is the tool that's needed to start. But you are going to get that deficit. So if you look at the road plan that, and I introduced that last year, that McIntosh Perry did, there was $15 million worth of roads in that 65 million of the road. that weren't even addressed. They weren't even touched, because that was your deficit. So you are going to start with a deficit here too.
How about that?
Even with that, I think it's important that we need to know what we have. And as we add tangible assets into the municipality, whether it's replacement, whether it's new things that we find that we need to have this in place so we can plan for it basically down the road. And I think the scary thing here is, yes, we're saying that if in a perfect world, if all of our equipment was brand new, all of our roads were brand new right now, this is what it would cost us. We have much money to put together aside every year. It's a starting point, but yeah, we are behind the 8 ball as far as, again, because we have, 30-year roads that are supposed to be done every 30 years that are at 35 years old right now. So yeah, it's going to look really daunting when we look at it, and the numbers are going to be scary, but it gives us a starting point, like Andrew says. The sooner we start, the sooner we make progress.
I wish there was something in there that said like, Left Cemetery is like a 30-year lifespan, but we're at like year 2. You know what I mean? And so then I wish the Reiki Road, a 30-year lifespan, but we're at year 18. Like, do you know what I mean? Because then you kind of have a better idea.
Then you really that's scary.
No, I know, but then at
Yeah,
least
but
then you
that's-
say this road is the one that we have to concentrate on. Like, not right now, it seems like every 30 years, holy Toledo.
Yeah, well, and I guess that's where I was going with
So,
this. And I know just what you were trying to respond to. Is in the sense that this is the template.
So again, I'll just go one step further again. Is this a schedule? So this is the way it's supposed to work. Schedule B is going to be all the special considerations. So there's going to be, because like there's hundreds of fields here, there's going to be something on each road to say that this is what we have on the road. This is what's required to maintain assets. So in Schedule B, you're going to have a paragraph as opposed to one line.
Okay.
And that would probably
It's gonna be
say,
like this.
yeah.
And usually those asset management plans, just as you were saying, they spell that all out for you. This road, this has a 30-year lifespan, but we're already at year 25.
Right.
Something like
So-
that.
That tells you then, because then you know every year, well, yeah, this road is coming up for a major work this year. Okay. Plan.
Okay.
So when this all works and when everything's perfect, you'll be able to sit back and relax. And what you will do is you'll be looking at the fire department coming forward and saying, we now need a smart truck. And you'll be deciding on purchasing new assets. And staff will be required to do a business plan so that this stuff is taken care of. So when you buy that new smart truck for the 5-story building that we built, you are going to have the care of that asset for its life. So one thing that I'll tell council that we want to do in everything we do from now on, if we purchase a new asset, it needs to have a business plan. And that business plan needs to include this. So if you're building an asphalt road, we've established that it's going to have a 30-year lifespan, and it's not good enough just to pay $300,000 to do the road. You've got to have the money going in place every year for the perpetual care, because that's what the province is telling you to do.
And that's how the province is going to determine how you get grants moving forward, because they're going to want to look at your asset management plan. Have one. See that you have one, and see that your asset is actually identified as needing a replacement or repair that you're applying for. Any other questions? I'll call the vote. Councilor Burns? Yes. Councilor Buckle?
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
Councilor Reicher-Schonfeld?
Yes,
And a yes, that's carried. Thank you. Item 7.9 is the Poacher Union Public Library. the report and the CEO's report. Any questions? Sorry, I have a resolution that the council accepts the November Bonshire Union Library report and the November CEO report as presented. Can I get a move in a second? Moved by Councilor Reggie Schoenfeld, seconded by Councilor Byrne. Are they still working on filling the positions for the part-time?
Yeah, I'm done with interviews.
Okay. Call the vote, Councilor Burns?
Yes.
Councilor Buckwell?
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
Councilor Reggie Schoenfeld?
Yes.
And a yes, that's carried. And 7.10 is the service review report. So I have a resolution that council accepts the report and that a questionnaire be completed by each council member on township services. And further, that the completed questionnaire be returned to the clerk treasurer by December 30th, 2020. And I got a mover and a seconder, moved by Councilor Buckwell, seconded by Councilor Robinson. Questions or comments? Councilor Reggie Schoenfeld?
What are we looking at and what will be contained in the questionnaire? I'm just trying to figure out the reason for the questionnaire.
So, Council Burns asked the last meeting to bring this forward, and staff went ahead and did a report. So to have a service review, the first thing you want to know is what services you have, what services you don't have, what services you want, what services you're required to have by law or need. So the questionnaire would be dog catcher. Do we need a dog catcher? And council would say, no, we don't need a dog catcher, so that wouldn't be a service that. So if you have, and I think there's an example in the area, a company come in and do a service review, and you don't tell them what you want, they'll look at everything. So, for example, if you hired me to come in and do a service review, I would look at public works and I would say, okay, minimum road standards are way high, as you're above your minimum road standards. You can lay off 4 college drivers and that's going to save you X amount of money and I've done my job. But we follow roads to a higher standard. So you need to let the company know if you're going to put an RFP out, this is what we want, this is what we don't want, this is what we need, and this is what we have. You need to get all those things in a row. So do you want economic development? Do you want recreation? Do you want parks? Do you want the staff of the office to answer the phone when someone asks about a good place to stay and a place to eat? So you list all your services. Again, what you want, what you don't want. And then when you do put an RFP out, you can direct the consultant to do what you want as opposed to what they believe you want.
Yes.
So then, administration is constructing questionnaire?
We would, based on what we have now and what municipalities normally, for example, the city of Ottawa, they list 40 services that the city they group them together. So we're going to put fire protection.
Right.
Do you want fire protection? And you're going to say yes.
Right.
You want fire prevention? And you may say, well, no, we don't care about fire prevention. So you say no. If you ask the consultant to do something, you need to tell them what to do.
Okay.
It is a lot of work to make the survey, but if you're going to go with RFP, you need to put those things in place. And we keep giving ourselves more work here, but that's just the way you do things, unless you want to delay that. And I know Councilor Burke on Friday, so we want to bring it forward in the new year, but we didn't get the information, so I had to put something together.
Councilor Robinson.
First? Okay. No, I guess as you said, yeah, it's a lot of work. When would you anticipate having a questionnaire?
Well, I didn't want to do the questionnaire until we're told we have to do it. Because it's a lot of work to put together and we've been doing a lot of stuff, so I said to staff, I will just wait until we say the council really wants this right now, then the council Bert phone said he wants to bring it forward next year, like the new year. If the council wants to defer this to the new year, we're happy.
Well, considering this is the last meeting of 2020.
So if you want to defer that, we can defer it till the second meeting in January.
Council Buckler.
Yeah, that was just my question, like looking at the targeted date of having responses back by December 30th. That just doesn't seem realistic. Again, because you still have to design, put together the survey, and we have to kind of think about what we want and respond. I think the timeline is a little short. But I definitely agree, it's a good exercise to do.
Yeah. So we're recommending to postpone it to the second meeting in January.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
I would even, I think of maybe even pushing it ahead further because the county has just finished their service review. They're doing another service reviews, which they will just pass today, specifically related to planning, because some of the municipalities aren't happy with the service that they're getting from the county. So the county is doing a review of their planning department and looking for opportunities to work more closely with municipalities and maybe looking for some efficiencies as far as delivering the service and maybe making the service a little more affordable. So once again, as I say, we might be a little premature. That's just my feeling, that if we waited and had a little more time to see where the county's going, might give us a better idea of where we can go. Councilor Reckerson.
Is there any way though, like sometimes, like when I read stuff, I have to read it several times to really start to think and absorb what the material is. Is there any way somehow they can work on a questionnaire so that we could just even a preliminary, so we could look at it and say, yeah, that's a good idea, or like, did you think about that, just to make a better questionnaire? Like maybe it's like, you know, it takes 2 trials to get the questionnaire we really want, but there would be a starting point for us to read and think about.
It's not a bad idea. Andrew.
So when you move forward to the second meeting in January, the resolution just says council accepts the report and the questionnaire be filled out. It doesn't say that you're going further than so, you know, that goes right to council regulation, but you don't have to do anything. You can do it anytime you want, and then you can make a decision what you do later.
Yeah, like I just, you know, like sometimes when you think about it later on and think about, no, I really thought about that service, maybe, I don't know.
So I think what I'm hearing here, Councilor Reckerson, let's look at completing the survey by the second meeting in January.
Or just have, no, just have it
Bring it
after.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having a draft.
Yeah, sure, it's like a draft survey that we could look at, and then, like, it's a work in progress, right? It's better, I agree with Andrew, it's better to have a really good one, so then the person that's going to do the study is going to do the stuff that we think is important, right? Not what they think.
I think if you just defer the item, we will review the resolution and the report to reflect what council has got right now.
So motion to defer.
Just
Motion to defer. Yeah.
And then you'll work on a questionnaire that will be.
So all in favor of deferring, Councilor Burns?
Yes.
Councilor Buckle?
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
Councilor Reckerson?
Yes.
And a yes. So that is deferred. Item 711 is the broadband report. We have a resolution that council sends a letter supporting NRTC's application to the Universal Broadband Fund, which is the rapid response stream program to improve broadband service in our municipality. Can I get a mover in a second? Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Buckwell. So just a little background on this. As I put in the report, I did sit in on that provincial webinar where they talked about this funding stream. And then right after the meeting, I got a call from Chris Overton from NRTC saying that they already have the business case together to extend a fiber optics buried cable from what's right now in Compton. And they would bring it into our region. They would pick up County Road 30, Mink Lake, Lake Dory, Highway 60, Highway 41. They would pick up the municipal office, and it's 1 gig up and 1 gig down. And they would even extend it. They had set up 2 project applications, one for our township, one for Laurentian Valley, to go from White Station Road to Witt Road. They're putting it all together now in one application because they think they may have a better chance, especially working with more than one municipality. So that's their goal. And this is the type of application the government's looking for. They want business-ready cases because this is what they're calling their rapid funding stream. And they want any of the approved applications, the work has to be done within 1 year. So I think it looks promising. Yes.
So it's a letter of support, and there's no financial obligation.
No.
And then what, I don't understand 1 gig up and 1 gig down. What does that mean?
You know the issues you're having tonight here, with respect to the internet, you won't have that anymore.
But why did they say 1 gig up and why don't they say it's 2 gigs or something?
It's
You can get internet that you're gonna get.
Okay, and so what do you think we have right now?
you're lucky now if you maybe have 5 up and 1 or 2 down.
Megabits. A
Yeah.
megabit is 1,000 bits, or 1,000 megabits. So basically, theoretically, 1,000 times 12, sorry, 500 times faster.
Right.
500 times faster.
It would give us pretty much the same speed as what's available in a lot of the cities right now.
But it just, when they said, when you said Lake Dory, that's just the County Road 30 or like around?
They plan to go around Lake Dory.
Around?
Including one church.
That's around Lake Dory.
Well, even if they put fiber to the neighborhood, along 41, you may not get gigabit down there, but we should still be able to get the 50 meg, which is what Industry Canada now is called the baseline for high-speed internet. So if you're within like a mile and a quarter, they put a central office at one end of that road.
Like a tower, right? Is that what you mean?
No, like a little bell, like a bell would have a little building.
Right, but then what, how do you get it to your house?
Then it goes over the ordinary copper line.
Oh,
It's just like Bell has their fiber to the neighborhood, as opposed to fiber to the
right,
house.
okay.
Councillor Robinson.
You just said that the work has to be done within 1 year.
1 year of the approval of the application.
Okay.
And they're really, really hoping they have a chance. What Chris Overton was telling me is, because they already have submitted this application a year ago, but it didn't really move anywhere. Now, since COVID, there's a much more of a push to speed up the approvals, and that's why they created this rapid funding stream. And even some of the, they call it the last mile, there's apparently something like $400 to make a connection to each individual customer. But that's now included in the funding, which it wasn't before. So that's the reason that they're submitting an application again, because they really like that possibility of lowering the cost of bringing the internet to individuals.
So they could actually bring fiber right to the household.
I think so, yeah.
So households could actually get that gigabit speed.
Right.
And it's nice that I know, like, Miracle's parent company is Southern Ontario, but they have a large presence in this area because of the Beachburg office, and they can cover the whole area. And they're a good service provider. I can see them being successful with this.
I know Cogeco is also applying for some of the funding, but from talking to Chris, he said Cogeco has to do a lot more infrastructure development to get to the where NRTC is right now.
NRTC already has a lot of rights of way for lines they have in Metro County. So, yeah, they don't have to worry about getting the rights of way. There'll be some that they'll need, but a lot of their infrastructure is just a matter of laying fiber beside it. So, yeah, they're round pegging the right hole.
And that's part of the reason for the letter of support, because it's an indication to the government that as a municipality, we would be agreeing to issue them permits to put fiber along some of our municipal roads. I'll call the vote. Council Burns.
Yes.
Council Bucklow.
Oh, yes.
Council Robinson.
Yes.
Council Rector Schoenfeld.
Yes.
And a yes, that's carried. Thank you. Item 713 is the, or 712, sorry, the heavy equipment extrication agreement with PV. I have a resolution that council agrees to the heavy rescue extrication agreement between the corporation of the Township of Poacher Valley, herein after call referred to as Poacher Valley, and the corporation of North Algona Wilberforce Township. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Byrne, seconded by Councilor Rector. Comments or questions? Councilor Buckle?
Just one, I noticed there's nothing in this agreement about suppression services at extrication scene. I know in the previous agreements, Poacher Valley provided extrication and now provided suppression. I don't know if that was still spelled out in the old agreement or if that was a sidebar.
I think that was a sidebar. And I will point out one thing for one. I thought because of council's actions this year and things that have happened in this township, that I would add, and this is not what Poacher Valley provided to us, but I added this, and their fire chief agrees with this last line. It states basically in the case of an accident scene, the way it was worded, Poacher Valley just basically packs up their stuff and leaves, and they get a call from Poacher Valley. But what we've given them is this action will be at the discretion of the Poacher Valley response or scene command, meaning that if there is a serious accident in our township where there's just metrification needed in Poacher Valley, and it's not as serious as ours, the fire command can decide which one to stay at, and which one to go to. So we wouldn't want to have a life and death situation where just because of politics, we need to, we go back to the Poacher Valley. And they agree with that. So they have to take that, this addition, they have to take back to their council, but the fire chief and the CAO agree that this is a good addition to the document.
Councilor Buckle.
The only other one I see is 9.2. The transfer of full command to the non-department down to the discretion of Poacher Valley Command. I think that's, I don't know what our chief's position is on that. I haven't spoken with them about it. But I'm thinking that should be our authority as opposed to theirs.
So I did talk to the chief about a couple of clauses, including that one, and he was okay with that clause.
Okay. That's all I had.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Councilor Burns.
Yes.
Councilor Buckle.
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Reggie Schunkel.
Yes.
And yes, that's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Terry, for your.
Merry Christmas to you all.
Yes.
Yes,
Terry.
say Happy New Year too.
Yes.
Item 713 is the insurance renewal report. I have a resolution that council approves the municipal insurance renewal proposal from MIS, which is the Municipal Insurance Services, in partnership with Marsh Canada Inc. for 2021 in the amount of $103,840 plus applicable tax. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Robinson, seconded by Councilor Buckle. So, as is the case, I think in every municipality, they're looking at increased insurance premiums. Some of them as high as 30 and 40%.
How much have that done over last year? And was it a number?
Well, it's up 18% over last year. And just,
15%.
just for council's benefit, we just received this information, and that's why it was late put on the agenda. So it needs to be addressed immediately. But I think clerk treasurer has a lot more information on that 18% sounds pretty good.
Yes, so I did talk to our broker this morning, so he did provide a little more information. So some municipalities that had no claims, they were seeing increases between 15 and 20%. So we fall within that category. Our increase is 18%. Now municipalities with claims, in their office, they saw the increases as high as 50%. And they also heard that some municipalities were experiencing 150% increases if they had claims. So yes, 18% or a little over $16,000 increase is significant, but we could have seen that higher increase. It's to do with the type of insurance market we're in presently.
The other challenge is these joint and severable liability claims that townships get drawn into, which I know all municipalities and the county are trying to get the government to make some changes that would take the municipalities out of that equation when there's, because sometimes they're identified that the municipality only has a 1 or 2% at fault in the accident or in the claim, but they still, because municipalities have the ability to pay, that's why they get named in the lawsuits. Council Berg.
I was running down to a farmer, and that's farm paper that I get, and a lot of the insurance companies, the big cities, they just pay out the people, they put a claim if they fall on the street and hurt themselves. They're getting a payout of $5,000, and most people walk away from that. To me, that's not right.
But a lot of times they look at it that's more cost effective than spending all the time
In court.
in court. And then seeing your insurance rates go up. Some of them just do, and you're right, they'll put the offer out there. Not everybody will take it, but a lot of people will, just to walk away and forget about it.
And then I was talking to a contractor last week, and there's about probably 6 places, maybe all the people at the town, I can't tell because it was $500 liability, like the schoolyards. And there's nobody will be doing it anymore because they can't afford insurance for this. And in Quebec, if you fall on the ice in the province of Quebec, so you can't sue the province because that's sort of part of nature that you get these things. In Quebec, you can't see what the training is doing.
Yeah, it's not getting any cheaper buying insurance, that's for sure. So I'll call the vote. Council Burns,
Yes.
Council Buckwell,
Yes.
Council Robinson,
Yes.
Council Riker Schoenfeld,
Yes,
and yes, that's carried. Department report updates, so we have a building permits update. I have a resolution, the council accepts the building permits report as presented. And I'm going to move in second, moved by Council Burke, seconded by Council Riker Schoenfeld. I was just wondering if, Michelle, you had an idea of how the value of the permits that were issued since the beginning of the year. I think this only covered the last 3 months.
Yes. I don't at this time, we can provide it for next month meeting.
That would be good, because I'd be, yeah, I'm curious to see
And you're
how
the-
how we did compared to previous or other years.
I think we can provide that.
Thank you.
We have all reports for all
The months.
the whole year.
Councilor Riker Schoenfeld.
and so our building inspector is still on, right?
Yes. Looks like there were lots of septic system replacements or updates.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Council Burks,
Yes.
Council Buckwell,
Yes.
Council Robinson,
Yes.
Council Riker Schoenfeld,
Yes,
and yes, that's carried. That brings us to correspondence. I have a resolution of council accepts correspondence items 9.1.1 to 9.1.6 as information. Can I get a move in a second? And moved by Councilor Riker Schoenfeld, seconded by Councilor Buckwell. Councilor Burns,
Yes.
Councilor Buckwell,
Yes.
Councilor Robinson,
Yes.
Councilor Riker Schoenfeld,
yes,
and a yes, that's carried. Thank you. Well, item number 9.2.1 is the OBWRC budget for 2021. I have a resolution. Council directs staff to bring information forward regarding the township's partner contribution allocation to the Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Center of $109,600 during the 2021 capital budget deliberations. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Riker Schoenfeld, seconded by Councilor Burns. Comments, questions? Those costs are directly related to the expansion of the current permit so that they can open up the last 2 cells, and that would be the cost. That would be our cost. Of course, the other municipalities pay considerably more. I'll call the vote. Council Burns,
Yes.
Council Buckwell,
Yes.
Council Robinson,
Yes.
Council Riker Schoenfeld,
yes,
and a yes, that's carried. Here. That brings us to bylaws. I have a resolution that now therefore the Council of North Algona Wilberforce enact the following bylaws. Bylaw 2020-75 being a bylaw to close and convey shore road allowance. Bylaw 2020-76 being a bylaw to authorize a restricted covenant agreement. Bylaw 2020-77 being a bylaw to close and convey shore road allowance. Bylaw 2020-78 being a bylaw to authorize a restricted covenant agreement. Bylaw 2020-98 to establish a schedule of fees. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Bird, seconded by Councilor Robinson. Questions, comments? Seeing none, Councilor Bird?
Yes.
Councilor Buchwald?
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
Councilor Reggie Schonfeld?
Yes,
And a yes, it's carried. Thank you. Number 11 is matters of urgency. Do we have any? Seeing none, no notice of motions. Oh, yes. Sorry. So we do have one item of urgency, and it's item 11.1, the CEMC. I have a resolution, be it resolved that council appoints clerk treasurer Michelle Mandefeld to be the alternate community emergency management coordinator, effective forthwith, and that Chief Administrative Officer Andrew Sprunt act in place of the alternate CEMC if required. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Reggie Schonfeld, seconded by Councilor Robinson. Comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Councilor Burns,
Yes.
Councilor Buchwald,
Yes.
Councilor Robinson,
Yes.
Councilor Reggie Schonfeld,
yes,
and a yes, that's carried. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder, Michelle. Appreciate it. So we've got item 14 next, which is upcoming meetings and unfinished business. Our next regular council meeting is January 5th, 2020. The focus will be primarily budget. Item 14.2, which I mentioned before the mayor's address, that Renfrew County was selected to host the 2022 Ontario Winter Games. Item 14.3 is the RED grant, and RED grant applications have been extended. Does staff want to add any?
We're just going to bring that forward to the next meeting so council can review, but we'll be able to bring a report to the next meeting. I think it's the February.
is the budget meeting at 7?
It'll be a regular council meeting with the primary
Okay.
budget, so yes, it'll be the
Okay, just so we're on my. Please. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, we're still up for training this week.
Yes, we are.
So just, there's been issues with the last one. If council would like to defer until the first week of January, it would be advantageous to us. Michelle's had some extra duties put on her this week. And putting it on Michelle, it would be beneficial for us. She hasn't had the time to spend on
Be in the training.
that, the training
If we're moving into,
to January and be able to talk to the date.
You want to come up with a date right now? Is that what you, are we saying that?
We can come up with a date, so Michelle,
Yeah, I can't do the first week. Because,
Also, first week's the regular meeting. How's everybody scheduled for the second week of January?
For a day meeting.
Yes. Could be 3-4 hours.
Only the Friday.
Yeah, Friday is probably my best bet too, second week.
So that's the
Is that the- is that the eighth or
No,
the 15th?
15th of January.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, 15th actually works well for me.
yeah.
I'm just gonna double check. And it's good for me. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope so. I left my phone in the car. I know.
You'll be okay. Very good.
No. I'm good. I knew that.
You're good.
Morning, yes, so let's schedule it for January 15th,
Okay,
9 o'clock.
8:30 was the.
Yeah, we have 8:30.
Oh, okay, so 8:30?
Yeah.
sure. Okay, so that brings us to item 15, which is our closed session. We have two items involving personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees. I have a resolution that council goes into close at 8:33 p.m. Pursuant to section 2.3.92B of the Municipal Act for two personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees. And I'm going to move in a seconder, moved by Councilor Burns, seconded by Councilor Robinson. Councilor Burns? Yeah. Councilor Bucklow?
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
Councilor Rachel.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Thank you. We're in close. We'll take, Wendy